Hello, everybody, and welcome back to the fifth episode of the Hunt the Wild podcast. I'm your host, Adam Bolds, and today I'm joined with rookie hunter Elizabeth Brownell. How are you doing? Did I say
Doing
your
good.
last name right?
Yep, you did,
Okay.
Brownell.
So I've been following you for a little bit on Instagram and a little on TikTok and kind of your journey getting involved in hunting in the outdoors. Can you tell everybody a little bit about yourself and who you are, maybe where you're from?
Yep. My name's Elizabeth. I'm 25. I'm from Fredericksburg, Virginia, and I live in the Northern Neck right now in Virginia. And basically just started this hunting journey like around this time last year. Our archery opener is October 2nd, so it'll be a full year next month. And I just thought I'd make a Instagram and try to document it because I knew I couldn't be the only person that started this with like no prior experience, no prior knowledge, like no family, no friends that did it. So I definitely just wanted to document it and try to connect with like other hunters who were in the same situation.
Did it seem like that first year flew by? I know the seasons fly by fast for me.
Honestly, no. I feel like it was,
Really?
yeah, because it's just like every day I feel like I was just either experiencing something new or like searching for that knowledge. So honestly, no, I feel like every day I was just trying to figure it out basically.
Was it so you think is a little overwhelming sometimes, so it made it kind of like drag?
Yes, yeah.
Yeah.
I'm definitely one of those people like when I find something I love, like I don't I don't half-ass it. I want to get into it. And something like hunting too. I think it was monumental for me because I had never been inspired before. Like it definitely, I feel like people have their passions, their hobbies, but for a while, I was like, what is it about hunting that has just hooked me in, has just like consumed my thoughts, like obsessed, addicted. And it was because I truly was like inspired by the connection with nature, the connection with like the animals, and I think the respect that hunters have for those things that I didn't understand before.
So you were, and we talked a little bit about this before the show, but you were a vegan prior to this whole adventure, right? I mean,
I,
you dabbled in it a little bit, or were you
I
like a
did.
hardcore?
So I think my first experience, I was in high school. I think I was a senior, and I was like, all right, like, cruelty to animals, like all that stuff. Probably a lot of people watching this like can't relate, but just I was pretty young, and I was like, this is what I'm going to do. It's going to make me feel better. And then I started working at a chicken wing restaurant as a hostess, and I think I lasted like 3 months before I like caved, and I was just eating chicken wings like every day. So that was the first time I tried to go vegetarian, and then I think it was probably one more time in college, and that was like vegan. And then it was outside of college, vegan again. And again, I think I would like go for like 6 months, like super strict, like plant based only. And then it would, I'd fall off the wagon, like most people do. And then so I think it was before COVID happened when everything was still up in the air, and where I was living, like grocery stores started getting sketchy. Like it was just, I knew that I probably wasn't going to be able to continue my vegan diet like healthily. Like you can definitely do it, but like to actually consume like nutrients, like you can eat salad every day, but like that's not
Right.
really what veganism is. So I knew to be healthy, I probably would start, I had to start eating meat again. So I made that decision right kind of when COVID happened. I was like, I have to do this, you have to introduce meat, slowly to start. And so that's kind of what I did. And then I started hunting, in a matter of, that time frame. So
Does it make like if you've been vegan for a while, does it make you feel sick if you eat meat? You said
yeah,
introduce it slowly.
yeah, like you can get sick. It's just like if you stop drinking for, a couple years and you just drink.
Yeah.
That's kind of how I thought about it. So I knew to do it the right way. I was like, I don't know if I'm going to be able to get fresh produce every day and like, eat what I normally was eating. So I just thought to be more forgiving to myself, I was just like, all right, you know what? The world's at a crazy place right now. So I can consume to eat without restrictions kind of that way.
I am kind of curious, what do you start like when you're coming off of the veganism thing, what do you start with, like chicken or something, or
Yeah,
you don't go full red meat?
I stayed away from red meat for a good amount of time. I really was just eating like chicken and fish.
Yeah. So I mean, you probably like meat, right? You just didn't want to
I
eat it
do.
for ethical reasons. Yeah.
Yeah, it was
Okay.
really all ethical and sustainability, which is how I kind of found hunting as well.
I guess it's kind of good to have an outside perspective of somebody that didn't hunt or was a vegan before. I have to know how you viewed hunters before, like when you were on the opposite side of the spectrum. I mean, tell everybody how you feel, be honest.
Yeah. So, and I really haven't had the opportunity. Some people have asked me that in my DMs, like, what were you thinking before? But it's definitely funny to talk about it because even now, like, I'm not gonna lie, I feel like the most of like what I'm seeing, it's definitely like a very specific kind of group. Like, I think it's definitely a very conservative group that hunts.
Hmm.
And you can make assumptions, right? But from what I've seen, it's not that I never had any family hunting. I never had any like best friends, close friends, even like really just friends that hunted. So in high school, it was always like, all the trucks on one side of the parking lot, and then it was like hunting season. Everyone would be wearing camo. So it's like it was around. Like I grew up in the suburbs, but it was still still Virginia, so people were definitely hunting. I just didn't have really any experience with it. I think I'm that girl who I'm still that girl, right? Like I love to hunt, but I'm still that girl that will swerve out of the road for like turtles, birds, butterflies. Like that will be me for the rest of my life, unfortunately.
I'm
So
not hating. I'm the same way. I
yeah.
hate like even like driving down the road, I see a squirrel. I'm like, don't hit it, don't hit it, don't hit it.
Yeah, like I am reckless. Like I will swear for anything that I think is an animal. So I definitely I think I thought it was cruel.
Hmm.
Um and I didn't understand trophy hunting. Like I see people, like flying out to Africa and like, hunting elephants. Like I was really honestly fairly judgmental, especially with like trophy hunting. Um I didn't understand the respect that hunters have for the animals they're hunting, which I think for me was like a huge light bulb. I was like, wait a second, these people aren't like murdering animals, like they're feeding their families, they are um, contributing to conservation in like this country. And um, honestly, the response I've gotten from people, like when they're like, wait, you just started hunting at like kind of, I mean, I'm a young adult, but
Yeah.
definitely not, I think the more I hunt, I'm like, man, I can't imagine doing this as like a 5-year-old or like a 12-year-old. Like that
Right.
blows my mind. I'm like,
Yeah.
kids harvest like monster bucks. I'm like, that is the coolest thing ever. I can't relate, but it's awesome. So it's definitely, I think I viewed it completely different when I was younger. But I think even the couple years leading up to it, I was always interested, and I hope I was respectful from a distance. Like, oh, this seems cool. I just don't think that's for me. I don't think
Yeah.
I could do it. And even the first time I went out, I wasn't going out to learn how to hunt. I wanted to see, like, honest, I wanted to see how they were harvesting the actual meat. Like, I didn't understand that. Like, for most people who don't grow up in ag or anything like that, if someone just handed me a chicken and said, get the meat from it, I'd be like,
Yeah.
what the heck are you talking about? Like, I don't know how to
Yeah.
do that. So I was really just confused, and that confusion led to like I saw an opportunity and I was like, I'm never going to get this opportunity to see this again. So like, I want to see how it's done. And then from there, just, you know,
Did you kind of think, I know it exists, but did you kind of think like all hunters were just like beer drinking rednecks that went out and shot guns and just blasted everything away? I think that's a
yes,
misconception
a hundred
among a
percent.
lot of people that aren't involved, and then they go out
Yeah.
and they're like, and there is groups like that, but majority of us are not like that, and people go and they're like, wow, this isn't what I expected.
Yeah. And
Yeah.
I think that's another thing. It's like, I understood it was for conservation, but I think I easily thought, well, people are, either not following the rules and still, I mean, you see it, it's like, shooting past their limits or anything else. I mean, you have people who aren't following it, but I think
There's
I
always bad
definitely,
apples in every batch. Yeah.
yeah. And I've had friends ask me too, and they're like, "Well, we could do this," and I'm like, "Is that like legal?" And they're like, "Well, no," and I'm like, "Then I don't want to do it. Like,
Yeah.
I want to figure out the right way, the most ethical way, like, but I definitely, yeah, I think that was my first thought for sure."
So let's kind of dive in, like how you got involved. Like, who did you meet up with? Did you meet somebody on a forum? Was it a friend? Like, kind
Mhm.
of run us through, like, you're like, hey, Bob or whoever, let's go hunting. Like, how did it all play out?
So it's kind of just really random. I moved to a town like only 40 minutes from my hometown, but it's Bowling Green, Virginia. It's
Okay.
like a population of like 1,200, and um, at the time I was living with a person I was dating, but I was trying to like not we were living together, so I wanted like space. I was
Mm-hmm.
like, I don't want to be around him all the time, honestly. So
Yeah.
I started working. There's like a little hardware store in town, and so I was like, you know what? I work Monday through Friday, but I can always work like Saturday or Sunday. So I literally went to go like just drop off an application at the hardware store, and one of my like good friends from high school that I hadn't seen since then, because we went to different high schools, but we worked at the same job like literally it was like freshman year of high school. And I hadn't seen him since. So I was like, what's up? What are you doing here? Like, I didn't know he lived here. So I started
Oh, so
working
he
there.
just happened he just happened to live 40 minutes away in that town.
Yeah. And
Okay.
so he was telling me how like are you familiar with like dog hunting? Like hunting with dogs? Like,
A little bit, but I've never been. I just stuff I've seen.
so it's like a huge Virginia tradition. And in Bowling Green, he was basically saying like, oh, around like these, when the season opens, you just see everyone in blaze orange. Like there's just every truck has dogs on it. He was like, and it's a pretty like cool experience. And I was like, well, I don't know if I want to do that, but like, can you take me out whenever it starts? So I was like, can I just go with you? I was like, I don't want to do anything. I don't want to do anything. I don't want to carry anything. I was like, I just want to see the process, like start to finish. And if you harvest an animal, like I want to help you process it, like dress it. And I want to see that. I knew I was good with like, I'm not a squeamish person. So I knew I would be fine doing that. I was like, I might cry the whole time, but like, I can definitely do it. And so he was like, all right, like I'll take you out. And I remember it was the night before archery opener. And I'm not kidding. Like I don't know anything at this point, right? Like I haven't even watched any YouTube videos. I'm just like, all right, this is what I'm doing, I guess. Like I don't have any camo. He's like, I'm gonna bring you a jacket. Like what do
Let
you
me let me stop you for a second. Did you not want to watch videos because you didn't want to like taint the whole situation and think like uh, you didn't kind of want to ruin it for yourself, or you just
um
hadn't?
I just don't think my interest was there yet, because I wasn't going into it thinking like, oh, I'm going to end up doing this. I think it was really, I'm just like, oh, I'm going out with a friend and I trust him, and it's just going to, hopefully it's going to be a good time. Like, and I knew even if I did get emotional, that's not necessarily going to ruin an experience. Like I can easily say, yeah, I'm
You're not
an
the only one.
emotional
You're not
person.
the only
So,
one that gets emotional about those deer
yeah,
or whatever else it might be. Okay,
yeah,
so you're telling him you want to go. You're gonna watch. So
yeah. And
you guys
so
make a date to go.
And I just remember it was the night before, and I think I remember this the most because like it was just really funny, and like I think I was getting ready for bed. It was already like midnight, and we're like waking up pretty early. And he's like, "Hey, by the way, I forgot to tell you, like, don't wash your hair with anything that smells. Don't wash your clothes with anything." Like I had no idea anything about scent control, which now it's like such an
Yeah.
important factor. I had no idea, and he told me so last minute. So I'm like running around. I'm like literally, that's when I got on Google. I'm like, well, what do people wash their hunting clothes with? Like, I didn't have any scent free stuff. So I'm like in the inside of my dryer with like vinegar and paper towel. Like, I am like, I am going to make sure nothing smells. Like, he's like, don't wear perfume or deodorant. I'm like, what am I like? What? Like, what do people
Yeah.
use? I'm like, this is crazy. So I remember I wore snowboarding pants that morning. Like
Oh,
just
were they loud? But I guess it doesn't matter with the
no,
dogs.
it was just like no, because it's not. You only hunt dogs during a certain season. So
Oh,
like
okay.
yeah, like your archery, your muzzleloader, and then firearms, and then your dog season opens up.
Okay. So
Actually,
you're
that
gonna
might
be
be
sitting
wrong.
still, but they're not
Yeah,
loud pants.
no, they weren't loud
Okay.
plants. They were just black, and they were. I remember it was freezing, so it was just black like pants, pretty quiet. And he brought me a hoodie and like a little beanie, and that's literally what I wore. But I just remember the night before, I was like, you should have told me that before, because like a rookie hunter, like they're not gonna know that. Like it
No,
might
yeah.
sound like pretty simple, but
Yeah, I mean, if you're
yeah,
not involved in the game, I mean, that's
yeah.
for any of us, that's like a thing. But if you've never like hunted or anything, that's like the last thing
Nope.
on your mind is that the animal's gonna smell you.
I would have shown up with makeup and perfume and deodorant and would have been like, "What are we doing?" He
Did
would have been
he
like,
did he
"We're in
say
the
you smelled like vinegar, or did he
No,
ever mention anything about it?
no, because I told him I did all that. I was like, yeah, I was like, I freaked out and I literally like wiped the whole inside of my washer and dryer, and, like baking soda and like anything that removes scents. And he was like, oh, like you really didn't have to do all that. And I was like, all right, well, I'd rather like overdo it than under and mess it up for him. So
Okay, so you wake up in the morning. He picks you up, or you drive and meet him at the property. Is it public or private?
it was private.
Okay, so it's
Yeah.
like
So
property that he owns or leases or
mhm,
something. Okay,
yeah.
so you meet him at the property.
Yeah, I think I did. I met him there, and then we walked out and like it wasn't far. It was probably like 5-minute walk, if that, to the stand. It was a two-person stand,
Okay.
and it was pretty dark. And I'm afraid of heights, and I hadn't really thought about it. Like I don't know what I thought, but I didn't think I was going to be in a tree. I guess I don't know. And so I'm afraid of heights. So I was like, okay, it's a two-person stand. So like if I fall, like he's gonna be there. I think that's probably what I was thinking. And so I just remember we went up there, and it was like the perfect amount of cold. I don't think I slept because I was so nervous, but definitely the second time I took like the best nap of my life. And still to this day, I am that person. Like the second I get in a tree stand or blind, I immediately close my eyes. I'm like, 20-minute nap, here I go. Like it's dark out. I love it. It's the best nap you can get, I think. But that morning, I remember I was so nervous. And I think I was so nervous because again, no prior hunting knowledge. I assumed that like you're gonna see an animal every time, or you're gonna like harvest an animal every time. Now I know that's like that's
Yeah,
not
not the
how it works.
case.
That's not the case. But I think that's what I was thinking. So I was just so nervous because I was like, oh my gosh, it's gonna happen. Like it's happening. Like I'm doing it right now. Like it's gonna happen. But I remember like sun started to come up, and I'm a big time birder.
Okay.
I love birds. I will sit out for hours and just watch birds. But it's always, at my feeders or on birding trails. I had never really just sat there and woken up with the woods. And I remember it was probably like 5 minutes in, like still, not very much light, but like a blue jay just like landed right on the branch, like next to me. And then as like the morning went on, just so many birds were like everywhere. And it's like the closest I've ever been to these birds that I've been watching for how long. So immediately I was like, all right, done deal. I was like, I don't have to carry a weapon ever. I was like, I might just become a hunter that just sits in the woods with other hunters, and I'm never going to pull a trigger. I'm just going to bird watch, because it was magical. Like I could have cried. It was the most beautiful thing I've ever seen.
Relaxing.
Oh my God.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay, so you're walking to the stand, you get up to the stand or whatever. He's like, "We're here," and he's just like, "Climb up there."
Yeah.
And you're like, "Oh, I had no idea." And you just like, so you're scared of heights. So I used to really be terrified of heights, but then I started hunting 20, 25 feet in the air. I'm like, I got to get over this. But I know sometimes I get like it comes back to me, but I know like in the mornings I'll get up there. I'm like, no big deal, because it's dark.
Yes.
I can't see anything underneath me. And then the sun starts coming up, and I'm like, okay, this thing is secure. Like I'm fine. But yeah, I know that can be a little bit like misleading when you get up there in the dark,
And
and then you
and I
get up
think
there
that
and freak out.
yeah, and I think that still happens to me. I'm like, oh, it's fine because it's dark. Like I'm literally just climbing up. I don't, unless I've been there before. Um, and it happened every time. It was like the sun would come up, and I'm like, oh gosh, I'm like looking down, like, oh, it's kind of I'm high up there.
So did you guys? So you sat there, the sun's coming up, and then what? Did you guys end up seeing anything? How long did you sit?
So that, gosh, so that first morning we saw two does come out, but they were a little far. And I believe it was that same day he actually harvested a button buck. So I actually did get to see like literally start to finish everything. We took the deer back. His buddy came out, and we went back to their place, and we literally just like grilled some backstrap, had some beers, and I was like, "This was a good morning." Like I loved it.
So was that later? You guys went back and hunted that afternoon, or he ended up
No,
killing
it
one
was
that
still that
morning?
morning. Yeah,
Okay.
it was probably a little later, around like 10.
Could you tell me how that went? Or let's set the scene a little bit. Like, are you on the edge of a field? Are you in the woods?
So it's on the edge of a field, but it's this perfect little area where it's like curved, and they had it was corn before there, so there were still some crops, and you can see like not far ahead, maybe like 60, 70 yards, there's like the other edge of the woods.
Mm-hmm.
So it was just in like a perfect little circle. And they have another box blind set up like to the left, maybe, again, like 70 yards. So he'd walked out, and he started shaking. I remember that. And I was like, oh man, like this is happening. And he doesn't use a compound, just a crossbow, which I know is like really sensitive.
No,
Hunting world.
nope. I actually am going to be using a crossbow this weekend with my wife. She's probably going to be shooting it, but I've shot plenty of deer with a crossbow too. So no hate there.
We'll have to come back to that later because I do have a couple questions for you.
Okay.
But yeah, so I remember he took the shot. And from where, like, I was sitting right next to him, but I remember branches were in my way, so I couldn't really see too well. But I remember once he shot, like, I was like, okay, like, now we go get it. And he was like, no, it's like not how this works. He was like, we're gonna sit for a little bit. And so then, yeah, we got down. Arrow had blood on it. I remember, like, I was like, where's your arrow? Like, is it still in the deer? Like, I really didn't know. But obviously crossbows, like that kind of velocity, they just go kind of right into the dirt. So
does he are you familiar with Luminox or anything like that? Like the
yeah, I
Luminox?
am.
Did he have those, or?
I don't think he had that. No, he didn't.
Okay.
Yeah, that definitely makes it a lot easier.
So okay, so you're sitting in the stand. We'll back up a little bit. The first time you see this deer, I mean, do you see it first? Does he see it? Do you remember?
He had seen it, which was actually funny because the rest of the season I was always like the first one to point. Like, I think that's my favorite thing is like waiting. I'm like, oh my gosh, I'm like there, and they're like where? And I'm like all the time. I'm like, it's right there. Like, don't move. Like, but this time, yeah, he definitely saw it first.
So he like taps you, or he says, "Hey, look, there's a deer."
Yeah, he was basically like, he kind of like shushed me. Also, I kind of thought from all like the memes I'd seen, right, like outside and not in the hunting world, but all the memes I'd seen, it's like people making fun of like their girlfriends for being so loud in the woods. So I went there prepared to like not say a word. Like, I was like, I'm gonna be very good. Like, I'm not gonna mess this up for him. Like, I knew I had to be quiet. Didn't know anything about sun control, but I knew I had to be quiet. So I was surprised when he was like actually talking to me and like definitely whispering, but I was like, oh, okay, so you are allowed to talk. Like,
yeah, you got to kind of get a feel for it. I mean, you didn't know, right? Because you never been, so you don't know if one word is a lot, or
Yeah. So definitely trying to go at his pace, and so he was kind of, he shushed me and kind of pointed it out. Then
did he give you the lay down on, like, because you're archery hunting, so they got to be fairly close. Did he say, don't move, like, don't blink a whole lot, like? Or were you just like, I know I have to sit still and not move?
I think it was more like just, I think I remember like he let it come in closer, and I remember just getting so nervous. I had closed my eyes at first because I was like, oh my gosh, like I don't know if I'm gonna like jump. Like I don't know how loud a cry, like I don't know anything. So I remember
Right.
closing my eyes like out of just first like just nervousness of like I don't know what's gonna happen. Like I remember I opened my eyes when he actually shot and I saw it happen. But and basically, yeah, he the button buck literally only went like 25 yards before he dropped. He was right maybe 5 yards inside of the woods, but it was towards the right. So
Heart shot.
yeah, great shot, like perfect. And yeah, and from there they were just like, all right, Elizabeth, like this is what you're gonna do. They handed me a knife. Then they saw me cut a little and they were like, have you ever cut anything? And I was like, yeah, like all the time in the kitchen. I cut my hands all the time. Like no one wants to see me wield a knife, basically. But
So when you're walking up to this deer, are you like, you have a lot of anxiety?
um I don't know if it was
Or could you like see
anxiety.
it from the distance and know it's
Honestly,
dead?
I
Like,
think it was adrenaline. Like I was feeling
yeah,
adrenaline. I was feeling adrenaline and it wasn't my deer, but I think I was really just all the feels because I this whole time, right, I assumed I was going to be bawling my eyes out. I thought I was just going to cry. So I think I was just nervous. I don't want to cry in front of two men that I'm like not really not too close
yeah.
with. So they saw me cry a lot more the rest of the season, but
Did you think you were just gonna? So if they give you the knife, are they? What do you think you're gonna do? Just chop its leg off, or did you realize like you had to
no,
start like gutting it first?
no. So I mean, they honestly, prop Marson and Mike, they become like such good friends of mine, and I forever owe them like what I feel like everything because of how I feel about hunting. They are like the best teachers. They were so patient with me, and they basically just they were holding its legs, and they were like, "This is how you're going to start. Like this is where you go." A couple times they were like, "Okay, like let's give him the knife, let him show you how to do it, and then you try it." Um, I think the weirdest part about that, again, I'm not squeamish, so I didn't think I was going to have like any problem at all. But I did not ever think about how like hot blood is.
Mm-hmm.
And I remember just having my hands in there and I was like, oh, this is a little weird because it's like, it's so fresh. Like you just saw this animal alive and now you're cutting into it, right? And I just remember my hands were like, it was weird. It was definitely weird.
Was it super? I mean, what's cold for you guys? Like, what was the temperature then?
Cold for me is probably different for cold for you.
Yeah,
It was probably like 40, 50.
yeah. So it's cold
Pretty
enough
cold.
to kind of like. I've noticed before too. Like you'll shoot a deer and you're like freezing, and you go to like gut it, and then it's still warm or whatever. And it's like putting it's like putting your hands under a hot faucet or like a
Yeah.
lukewarm. It's really weird. I guess maybe people that haven't done it just like think that it's like going to be cold.
I
Like
don't know what I thought. I'd
like
never
maybe like a steak, you would get a bloody steak out of the fridge, how it's kind of cold, but you don't realize. Yeah,
or
it's
maybe not
weird.
cold, but definitely like room temperature. But
Yeah,
it was warm, like it was significantly like warm and hot. And it's a it was just alive, so like it makes sense now. I think cutting into that deer, like that very first one, made me realize like we're just bags of like flesh. Like you and I, like everything, right? It's just it definitely put things like into a weird perspective for me.
yeah, it does put it into perspective. Um, so you gut it, you guys drag it out, throw it on a truck or whatever. Do you take it home and skin it, or you quarter it up there?
No, so yeah, they took it home, they hung it up and then they continued to show me how to like skin it, take all the meat off. We immediately took back straps and then they literally just chopped it up, started grilling, cracked open a couple beers. I was like, "Oh, okay." So then they took their time and they just kind of showed me how to do it. And I remember it was so embarrassing trying to cape a deer for the first time. And like I have little noodle arms, and I just remember for dear life, like they'd cut little like two holes into it so I could put my hands in it. And they're like,
Mhm.
"All right, just like pull it." And I'm like, "Okay, like just pull it." I try to pull it. I'm like, "No, like it's not just pulling it." They're like, "Well, like put your shoulder into it, like put your body weight." I think I literally had like both knees up to my chest hanging, just trying to cape this deer, and I was like, I need to change my whole gym routine. Like I am not strong. Like I'm so weak.
Yeah,
So
you didn't realize it was that hard to like get off or whatever. Yeah. A lot
yeah.
of people like to use like their forearm and they get a cut and kind of work their arm down in it, but I know people do it different methods. Was that the first time that you've ever had deer meat? Like venison or
So I'd had jerky before, but
yeah.
never anything else. So I mean, technically, yeah, because I feel like it is completely different. Because
Did
especially the backstrap, especially in archery, right? Like I know a
yeah.
lot of the deer that are ran by dogs, like their adrenaline's up so much, so they're gamier. But I think in archery, like I just remember had a bite and I was like, it's like fresh steak. Like that's literally it.
Do you remember how they cooked it? Did they cook it rare or pretty well done? I like to eat mine
Um,
fairly rare, like a minute
yeah,
on each side's a lot.
yeah. So I was surprised. I eat medium rare to rare, but I was surprised with the deer. I don't know why, but yeah, I was surprised. They did keep it a little more on the rare side.
Okay. So you get through that. Do you go hunting more later in the year?
I went home that afternoon and I bought my license. And I was like, yep. I was
Do
like,
you
I can
guys
definitely.
do you guys have to do hunter education there?
So,
Or is it like a I know they apprenticeship's not the right word for this, but I know
you,
they have like you can buy a license and not have taken it yet, like if it's your kid or something like a I don't know the terminology, but I'm assuming that's
yeah,
what you got.
yeah. So, what I should have done is gotten the apprentice. It's like a lot cheaper.
Apprentice.
Yeah. I don't know why I didn't. I just went home and I bought the regular one. I did my apprentice for Maryland and they accepted my Virginia hunter education. But yeah, it was just like a quick little online thing. I think it was like $40, not including your license. I know every state does their licenses and tags different. I
Yeah.
think that's always really interesting talking to other people. And I think I probably thought it was like federally regulated,
Yeah.
which makes no sense now that I think about it. But um, I always tell people who are like just now getting into it, I'm like, look up your state's like website, look at everything they have for you, because like if you're a new hunter and you're reaching out to other hunters, especially on social media, which has been great, but it can only help you so much. So it really is like so different from every state. So I always tell people to like pay attention to your stuff, not other people's. But
Yeah, it's important to that's something to note. It's important to look at like at .gov. I always whenever I check hunting regs, I always look at .gov because if Bob on Instagram tells you something's legal, and a lot of times it's not, and if
yeah.
you go out and shoot a deer and it's yeah, you could be in a
And
world of hurt.
that's been a learning curve for me too, because I feel like I see stuff online, I'm like, wait, I'm like, I can do that? And then I look it up, I'm like, no, I can't do that. I'm like, everyone else can. Like, so
Yeah.
it definitely is like it's a huge learning curve when you, especially like I was just going with my two friends, right? And so they only hunt certain things or they only hunt certain ways. So it was such like a, honestly, it's such like a, it's almost too much information at once. Like if you are starting out just new, brand new, like clean slate, no prior experience or education, it's just so much information that you just, I mean, that's why I think why it takes a
It's
minute
an
to really.
overload. It can be. There's a
It is an
lot to it.
overload. I remember like I started fishing and like, and that was recent too. I don't know why I thought I wasn't gonna like fishing, but I love it. I'm shocked at how much fun it is. But I remember like I'm crying in my garage at like 3 a.m. because I'm just down a rabbit hole of like YouTube videos on how to tie knots. And there's like just way too many, and I can't tie any knots. And I remember just crying, and I was like, this is too much, like too much on YouTube. Like, I don't like it. It was a lot. But hunting's
That's
kind of the same thing. It is an overload of information.
That's super relatable to me because I got into like self filming a little bit like last year or the year prior, and I've kind of like really dove into it. But I remember like the rabbit hole for that. It's like what camera to buy, this and that. And I'm like, oh, it's been 5 hours. I'm researching and I still know nothing.
Yeah.
So yeah, I know how that feels. So you get your license. Did you end up getting a deer last year?
Not in archery. So I did in muzzleloader.
Okay.
Um, so my first one, I don't know if it. Again, I feel like I go back and forth with everyone. Do you consider a spike a buck?
I consider it a buck just because I think it's labeled by its anatomy rather than its
Yeah.
antlers. But in my state, if you shoot like a spike and it's under 3 inches, low light, you can't tell or whatever, last shooting light. If it's under 3 inches, it's considered a doe. You can tag it as a doe. You don't
Oh,
have to
really?
take it as a
Okay.
buck. So I, yeah, I mean, I've shot them before by accident, not knowing, and low light, and I've said that I shot a buck. But I mean, I tagged it as a doe because that was a legal way. But
Yeah.
short answer, yeah, I think it's a buck.
Okay. So the first buck I got to harvest, which I'm not counting that as my first. Because again, the whole situation was it was a little different, right? So my buddy Marson took the initial shot.
Okay.
And we let him sit for a while. And when we went back in the woods, we found him in some thick brush, and he was still alive, like his head was up, like looking right at us. But we
Mm-hmm.
didn't want to get any closer to like spook him or move him again. So he went to go take the second shot, and I had never shot a muzzle loader before. And again, I had only seen them harvest a couple deers before this, so I was still really new and just kind of just along for the ride. I hadn't really, yeah, this was the first time I really spoke up, and I was like, "Can I take the second shot?" And I remember they both like looked at me and they were like, "You want to do it?" And I was like, "Yeah." I was like, I want to do it," because it was only like 10 yards away, and I figured this was going to be like the safest opportunity for me to not mess up and like harm the animal more. And I think I felt so much better about it because it was going to have to happen regardless. Like, the initial shot was already taken. And so, like, he's only suffering just, at that point, probably he had so much blood loss he wasn't. But in my mind, I was like, it has to happen. And it did. It had to happen. So I did take that shot. And so they were like, well, you finished it. So that's your deer. Do I count that? No, I don't count that. But I mean, it kind of, but not.
Yeah, I mean, I don't know. I count it. I don't know. That's a
I
tough
count it,
one.
but it's like, I think when I actually harvest like a buck, doesn't matter if he's even,
Yeah.
a 4 point, I'll be like, this is my first buck.
I would say you got your first deer, but it was like a group effort, but you haven't had the opportunity to kill one yourself.
And
So
so
yeah.
I actually did later in the season.
Oh, okay.
Yeah. And so that was probably my most like memorable hunt just because it was amazing. I remember that was my first time going out with Mike. So Mike was Marston's friend.
Okay.
So I went out with him, and his wife only shoots like bucks. She refuses to shoot does. And so I remember this was on his land, and that was my first time in a ground blind. And we set up kind of down, I don't want to say it was like a railroad, but it was basically like it was basically a giant lane. And I'm not sure if it was because like there were poles or whatnot, but um, he was basically like, how do you feel about, harvesting a doe? Like, I know Joanna doesn't do that, but would you be open to it? And I was like, as long as there are no babies, like as long as I don't see any baby deer, like
I won't argue with you there. I'm the
yeah,
same
I
way, and
was
so is
like,
my wife.
yeah. So I was like, I will do it as long as there are no babies. And
Yeah.
I remember he was like, that's great and all, but like around this time of the year, you're not really going to see a doe by herself. And I was like, okay. I was like, all right, well, we'll come to that moment. Like if, how I feel in the moment, but most likely if there's baby, yeah, I'm not doing that. Like that probably would have ruined it for me, honestly. So,
Yeah.
so I basically just told him no, and and we'll see. And so I remember it was probably maybe, and this was in the afternoon, which I prefer in the morning. I don't know if do you have a preference, like where?
I won't dive real deep into this, but I am like red green colorblind, like so I
Oh,
can
okay,
see red and green, obviously,
yeah.
like I can see stoplights and stuff, but so I can't hardly see blood like on green leaves during the day. But
Oh,
at nighttime, I can track a deer 100 times better at night than I
That's
mean,
crazy.
I can't see blaze orange tags on a tree during the day.
Wow.
So I prefer night just for that fact, and I do prefer I early archery hunt too. So it gets really hot in the mornings. I prefer night because it's a little bit cooler and you have
Yeah.
to let them sit. But mainly, yeah, it's because of color blindness. But
Yeah,
anyway,
that's crazy. I've never heard anyone that hunts that has that same problem. That's interesting.
yeah, it's really weird.
Yeah, but I remember we were only there for maybe about an hour, and she just immediately, and I remember, Mike had told me, he's like, hey, when, you only have from this tree to this tree to take the shot. So it's like when she steps out, you need to be ready. So I remember I saw, her step out, and it was, no babies, just this massive doe.
Was it in the
And
back of your mind that I know a lot of hunters know that the deer come out, sometimes they come out of the woods, like there might be babies behind it. Was that in your mind or no?
I know I waited. I did
Yeah.
wait. And I think Mike at one point was like, take the shot. Like, you have to take it now. And
Yeah.
I was like, no, baby's all right. So I remember, so yeah, I did wait a little bit just to make sure. But I remember with the muzzleloader, I pulled the trigger and nothing happened.
Oh, did the cap go off?
I just remember it was like a click and then like nothing happened, but I just like
Okay.
I stayed still. I like didn't move at all. And it was like a second later and then it fired.
Oh, okay.
And I remember Mike, he was like, holy crap, like that. He was like, you just did such a good job, because like most people would be like, oh, it didn't work and like move. He was like, and it was a clean shot. We tracked her. And, she was just a massive, like mature doe. And it just felt like, especially going into it where he's like, oh, you're probably only going to see a doe with babies. And like, I felt like the universe had just like put her there, like for me to be able to like harvest like my first deer on my own. And like from start to finish, it was amazing.
So, do you guys usually look where you hit her at, like a lung shot or heart shot? Is that something they do or taught you, or you guys just we got her?
I don't really, I don't remember. Honestly, I don't think they pointed out. I just remember he was like, that's a really clean shot. And like with what happened with the muzzle loader, he was like so proud of me. I was just like, it was really happy. Like it was a good time. I remember I was kind of confused because I remember, seeing my buddy shake with, the button buck, and I'd heard all this, people like shaking when they go to shoot, and like I didn't know if it was just because it was a doe, but like I didn't shake at all. Like I remember just everything happened pretty smoothly. I didn't get nervous until we started tracking her. And then I was like very nervous because that's like when I felt like I was shaking, because I was like, what if I did it wrong? Like, what if we don't find her? What if like I was just
You're not alone there. That goes through every hunter's mind
yeah,
unless they see the deer drop. I mean, it's
yeah.
been through my mind dozens and dozens of times. So you get her, you guys skin her or whatever. Do you keep all the meat or you give
Mm-hmm.
some to them?
So yeah, because we were, the whole season we were basically processing everything at Mike's place, so we were kind of all sharing meat. So I didn't get all of it, but I know over the whole span of the season, I definitely got way more. So it was, yeah.
So let's jump in to a little bit of this year. What's your plans this year? Are you hunting with those guys again on
Yeah.
private? You going public? You doing both?
So I hunted whitetail like all last year. I hunted whitetail in private. I didn't get onto public until I went to hunt turkey.
Okay.
And I feel, although I didn't harvest a turkey, those birds are like so much respect to them. The elusiveness is real. Like it was the most frustrating months of my life, I felt like, because I remember I was like putting in the work, like I was out there and it just wasn't happening, and I was just like, oh man, like this is hunting, like that's how it goes. But I'm so grateful for that first turkey season because it made me feel so much more comfortable in public.
Mm-hmm.
I will say, I'm still not comfortable in public, but going from hunting private your whole first season to even stepping foot on public, like It is a huge difference.
Yes, it is.
I mean, especially like I come from an Army family, so like my dad, we were comfortable with a 9 mil, and that was literally it. And
Okay.
so like firearms in general, like it's still a learning, on top of hunting, it's still a huge learning curve for me. And so being on public where I don't know who's there, how many people are there, um, what their experience is. Like, what if they're a rookie hunter and they're not with someone who hunts? Like, it was, I mean, probably if someone saw me on public, they'd be like, oh, she doesn't know what she's doing. It was a lot of anxiety. And so, but I do feel like I did get comfortable to a certain extent. So I will be hunting whitetail on public in Maryland and Virginia this fall. And so I'll be doing that. And then also, I've never hunted waterfowl, so that'll be new for me, and I'm super excited. I'm super nervous. I probably won't be able to hit anything, but I'm just excited to go and kind of watch and like get to see other people do it who like, that's their passion. So
I've never hunted waterfowl either. I'd love to get involved in it, but man, if you don't know somebody, it can get pricey real quick.
oh my gosh, yeah. And
Yeah.
I mean, hunting in general is a lot, but
Yeah. Yeah, that's a whole nother subject.
yeah.
So you're going on public. You going by yourself or are you going with these guys?
So I'll be hunting with Mike and Marson on their private. Public, I'll be hunting. I have a buddy up in Maryland, and he hunts public and private, so I'll probably be with him as well. And then I actually just started dating someone who hunts as well.
Okay.
So, and I'll be probably going with him on public, but he's also been doing a great job at like making sure I'm set up to like go on public by myself. And then if I do kill a deer, like he'll be there to help me. Cause I think that was the biggest thing for me. I'm like, okay, like I have my tree stand, like I have everything. What if I shoot a deer and it's too big for me to drag out? Because like, I'm just being honest, like I'm 5'4", I weigh 120,
Mm-hmm.
it's a lot. I figured I can do it, but is it going to take me 5 hours? Like maybe, yeah, it might be 2 a.m. before I get it back to my car. So
I've been down that road too. I've drug them through the mud up to my knees for hours, and I'm like, why am I doing this? But once I get it back to the truck, I'm like so happy. Do you guys hunt? I've never been out that way on public or anything. Do you guys hunt out at tree stands on public, or what's that look like as far as your setup? Are you going out now hanging stands? Are you?
So you can use, yeah, I mean, stands or ground blinds on public. I feel like probably because I'm still new to public, like I wouldn't feel comfortable like putting like trail cameras and like stands out because I like stuff gets stolen. So
Been down that
especially
road
it's
many
like,
times.
yeah, I don't have just, an ample
Yeah.
amount of equipment that I can like risk getting
Yeah.
taken. So for this season, I'm using a self climber for the first time. Yeah.
What kind?
So I got the Summit Mini Viper because
Good
it's only,
choice.
yeah, it's like the tiniest one I could find. It's super light. Highly
Yep.
recommend to any like female hunters. I could run in it. I mean, it would be a little uncomfortable, but it is light. So I just wanted the lightest thing I could find. So I'm like 100% sure I can actually carry it in and out. But even just using that is like a huge adjustment. So
Have you practiced in it?
a little bit, yeah. Probably I need to a little more, but it's been on the list. But usually, I think scouting was the first thing I ever did on public, and even that I went to go shed hunt. I literally shed hunted on public. That was like the first time I'd been out there. I met a girl on Instagram through my hunting page, who was also new to hunting. So I met up with Caitlin a couple of times, and we met up at a WMA, and we would just look for sheds, but really we were scouting.
Yeah.
And so that definitely got me a little more comfortable, like what to actually look for. I think that's a huge learning curve as well. I was hiking before, but like hiking and camping doesn't really prepare you to like look for signs, and like deer signs especially. I mean, even turkey too. Really anything. That is still like a process for me where when I do find something or I am like noticing patterns, I have to mentally reward myself because I'm like, a year ago you could have never, like you walked into the woods like not knowing anything. So I think that you definitely have to take the small victories and go with it.
The thing about public is too, not only are you hunting and trying to pattern deer or whatever, however your style is, but you battle with the people too. I mean, you could have something completely set, like you got a plan, and then you roll into the parking lot and you get there an hour early and there's already 10 trucks there and you're like, well, now what? So, yeah, the public game, I love it, but it sometimes can be frustrating. But I will say hunting public grounds made me a better hunter.
Yeah. And I think for me, at least, I haven't hunted whitetail in public yet. So I am kind of nervous. It's like, okay, like I know going into the morning, like this is the general area I want to be in, but what if it's taken? Like, how many backup plans do I have to have? And also, like, how long is that going to take me to get from backup plan B to C if that's taken too? That was definitely probably the most thing I was worried about when I started hunting public was actually running into other people. If you're new to hunting, like you don't know the etiquette. I didn't like, am I supposed to say hi? Like, am I supposed to talk to these people? I was actually really lucky. I was hunting with a friend in South Carolina and it was turkey as well. And that was my first time running into another hunter on public. So I just let him do all the talking. And I was like, I'm so glad this happened with someone else and not by
Yeah.
myself. And so I did my first solo hunt on public and it was during turkey. I ran into two gentlemen that they had been where I was going to go in the morning. And I remember hearing that shot from where I actually was. And they had harvested like a nice gobbler. And I was like, all right, lesson learned, like, okay. And they were back there that afternoon to get the other guy a turkey. So I talked to them for a little bit and I remember walking away and I was like, they were so nice. I was like, they're probably confused why like a little girl's in the woods by herself, but like, it's fine.
Yeah, eventually you kind of catch on to the etiquette. Like, it's just kind of like when you get introduced to some kind of new social class, you're not really knowing what to expect.
Yeah.
One thing you said you're hunting out of a summit. I hunt out of a summit too, the Viper. One thing I've noticed every year, like the first hunt, it's like super slow setting it up. And every time you go, it gets a little faster. So I was going to recommend anything is to practice with that thing. Like,
well, and the first
getting
time
the angles right and everything.
like the first time I set it together, I was like, what is this thing? And like, am I going to be able to do it? Because it does seem like, yeah, it seems like a lot. But
always make sure you pick a tree with good bite on it too. Don't pick a slick tree because you'll be sorry.
yeah, and that's what people were telling me too. And I'm like, even that, like you can see in the background, I'm a big houseplant person. However, like, do I know different kinds of trees? No, like I don't know that stuff. So even that, it's like, oh, now I have to pay attention to the trees and like,
Yeah.
So yeah, it's definitely another learning curve.
Do you use safety equipment when you hunt, like
So
a harness?
I'm not gonna lie, all last season, because I was hunting with other people and it was really at like their, like I was so lucky, Mike and Marsden, they let me use their equipment, like they really helped me out. But I was also, that means I'm at the discretion of how they hunt. And so I did not use a single piece of safety equipment. And now with my summit, yeah, I have like a safety harness and I'm ready to be strapped up in it. But I remember the scariest time. I had a coworker take me out and he had private land and he put me on one end of the field and he was going to go to the opposite end of the field. And so same thing, right? It's dark out when we get there and he's like, all right, like climb on up. And I'm like, I look up this thing and it's like the tallest tree stand I've ever been in my life.
Was it a ladder stand or was it like a hang on?
It was, what's a hang on? Is that like?
So it would be like a hang on would be a stand with no ladder, like actually attached to the ground. It would have like climbing sticks attached to the tree.
So I will say it had a ladder, but I remember it was like so rickety and like I got up to the top and it was, I'm not kidding, it was like a stool, like just up against the tree, like barely any space to put my feet. And I remember I just sat and I'm like, this is the tallest. I mean, it was probably only 25 like feet up in the air, but to me, I was like, this is so tall. Like
that's pretty high without a Yeah.
It was super high. There's like no little like, I'd been in the two-seaters before, so like there's a nice railing. Like there
Hmm.
was nothing like that. And I remember just holding like I had his daughter's muzzle loader and I remember just holding it and I'm like, if I shoot this thing at any other angle, like and my back's not up against the tree, like I'm gonna fall out. Like that was one of the times I was like, you cannot fall asleep, Elizabeth, you will die. I was like, there's no like you cannot fall asleep. I remember it was so nerve-wracking, but I don't
Are
even know what the
you
question was. I just remember that was like such a experience for me.
what are you using to attach to the tree? So you're wearing your harness, but are you using what came with? I don't know if the Summit comes. Are you using like a rope
Mm-mm.
with a
It's
knot through
it's
it, or
actually it's like a muddy. I think that's the brand. It's like a muddy safety harness. So it comes with like it's like
yeah,
straps. Then it comes with like a thing that goes around the tree, I think, and then your stand.
yeah? So they make one that's they have to by law send you a harness and like a little tether strap to attach to the tree to hook your harness with any tree stand now.
Hmm.
But they make those are like the strap that goes around the tree is usually kind of like a cam buckle, I guess.
Yeah.
But what I would recommend and what a lot of people use, it's looks like a rope. It's maybe 7 to 10 feet long. It goes around the tree, and then it goes. You throw the carabiner through the loop, and then it's got a knot that you cinch, and then you hook into your
Oh,
harness.
okay.
And then as you climb to that rope. You unknot the rope and you throw it up a little bit higher, and you
Okay.
cinch it. But if you were to fall as that rope is like untensioned, it would catch your harness and it would automatically. It's like a rock climbing
Okay.
knot. But anyway, if you're gonna roll with the Summit, you may want to look into those. I think they're 20 or 30 bucks, but they're a
Okay.
lot better than the ones that cinch. Because the ones that cinch, once you get them cinched, they're almost impossible once
To
they're
like
tight to
undo
get
it.
loose. So it can really
Gotcha.
slow you down. But like Hunter Safety System makes them. I can send you the link or something if you want to look into them. But they're
Okay.
really nice because they can ball up pretty little into a backpack and all that.
Yeah, I will say like the harness I have now, it's a little bulky, but I mean, I'm gonna be wearing it. So I switched out the straps that came with the Summit for like comfier ones. Like they're just more padded, so
Oh yeah,
I
yeah.
did do that.
I've been down that road too. I actually just tackled that and ordered something that I thought was going to work and hiked, I don't know, almost a mile back and didn't work out and they broke and I had to drag the stand out
Oh,
by hand carrying it with all my camera gear. And yeah, so I put the old ones
oh my
back on.
gosh.
What did
Wow.
you end up using for those? Did you buy what they sell, what Summit sells, or?
No. So the stand came with like the Summit straps.
Yeah.
They were kind of like
Yeah,
not they weren't comfortable.
they're
Yeah.
really
So
springy too, aren't they? Like
yes,
it.
I felt like every step it was like almost too much. So
Yeah.
I just I bought the same brand as my safety harness. It's like muddy.
Oh yeah.
And yeah, the straps are just a lot more padded and I feel like it's a lot more secure as far as like when you're walking with it.
Yeah, if you can get it up on your back, pretty far up on your shoulders, it's a lot better. I've noticed with mine, with those um, straps that come with it, it wants to. I wear rubber muck boots, so they're pretty tall. It wants
Mhm.
to clank the bottom of my boots all the time. So if you don't get it up high enough, what's something you hope to accomplish this season that maybe you didn't last season, or maybe just a goal you have in mind? It's got to be shooting a big buck.
It's definitely on the list. But if it doesn't happen, I mean, same with turkey. It's like, although I was mad, I was frustrated. I was like, oh my gosh, like it's only going to be so much more special when it finally happens for me. Like when everything comes together and I'm able to harvest that animal, like it's going to be 10 times more special because I struggled like to not, have that happen. I think honestly though, becoming a new hunter, there's so many learning curves all wrapped into one, but I think the biggest thing I realize is like there's so many things that you're not gonna get until you build up that muscle memory, and that only comes with time and consistency. So, although I was so lucky last year, like I got really lucky. I was kind of like half-ass teleworking almost. So there were so many. I was hunting like what felt like every other day during whitetail, and it was because my schedule for work was so flexible that I was able, like, I remember I was in a tree stand multiple times. I'd see my phone ringing from like my lead or my supervisor, and I would be like, all right, I'll be here one more hour and then I'll come into work, I promise. I would just hang up on them. And so it's definitely, although I was hunting a lot, I think there's just so much where it's like, you know, if you've been doing this since you're 5, like there's so many things that you're just like automatically doing without thinking because it is muscle memory.
Yeah.
And that for me, I think that's my biggest goal is just like, just trying to get more comfortable and like just consistency too. And just make sure I'm like, just, you know, just enjoying it, but also trying to absorb as much as I can again in like a short season. So,
I know you did a lot of watching last year, but you did do some shooting and killing some deer and everything. What's the biggest mistake you feel like you made last year?
yeah. So oh man, I remember this was after muzzleloader, you have a firearm. In the county I live in, I didn't live in a rifle county, so it was like a slug gun.
Oh, okay.
And I don't think it was like blind confidence. I don't really know what it was. I took a shot that I shouldn't have taken. I think it was like the yardage. It was just way more than honestly that I'd be comfortable taking right now. But I thought I had it. My buddy was like, yeah, take it. Like you got it. So I thought I got it. And I was a little high on, it was another spike actually. And we tracked them for like 4 hours, got lost in the woods. I think by the time we got out, it was like past midnight on like a weekday. So like we literally had to turn around, and like the amount of blood we had found, I thought for sure, like there's no way he bled this much, and he's not going to be like 2 steps away from me. And like people's like, you know, our phones were dying. Like we were down to 1 flashlight. Like we kind of had to go back. And they were being so like nice to me. They were like, oh, like he probably just, you know, like walked it off. Like he's probably good. There's no way like that deer was good. But even the next morning, like I had to go to work. Like Mike literally went to the same spot, tried tracking him again. I'm pretty sure he even brought like dogs out. And so like, yeah, I messed up. Like I took a shot that I shouldn't have, and it was high on him. And we lost him. And I went home that night and I cried and I cried and I cried. Literally just made a TikTok about this because I was like, that is a moment I'll never forget. And I think it made me so much more cautious to the point that it was like the last day of the season and no one yet had actually like harvested a buck, like out of the, 3 of us. And this was my first time sitting alone. Not first time, but I hadn't really sat alone by myself like too much.
Yeah.
And I hadn't sat alone and seen a deer, is more importantly. And so I was by myself. And again, it was a slug gun. And I remember this. I was probably at like 80 yards initially. Like I'd been watching does all afternoon. Like it was amazing. It wasn't either I couldn't shoot does or it was like just a like antler day, something like that. But I was just watching all the does. There were like fawns too. So I was really relaxed because I was like, oh, like, it's, and also I'm visibility wise, I have terrible eyesight. Like I wear contacts and glasses.
Mm-hmm.
And also not being too comfortable hunting. Like I feel definitely a lot more comfortable when there's more light, obviously. This had to have been like the last 10 minutes of like legal shooting light.
Mm-hmm.
And so naturally I was already ready to like not take a shot because I'm not comfortable with it. So why would I risk that again? I remember came out like 80 yards like from the woods, started walking towards me. So I just saw like the face kind of. I wasn't seeing the body or anything.
Right.
And I remember thinking, I'm like, I hadn't even seen a buck yet. Like I hadn't seen a buck at all. And so I remember thinking, I'm like, wow, that doe has really big ears. And then I looked through my scope and I'm like, oh my God. I'm like, that's a buck. Like, and it was a beautiful buck. Like, I'm not sure how many points, but like,
yeah,
he was pretty big. And I immediately lost my shit. It was bad. I thought I was going to pass out or vomit on myself. Like, I shook violently. to the point where he came back out. Like he was probably walked all the way to like 50. And I'm like, all right, just like give me a, turn broadside, like give me the shot. I'm like, I can do it. He turns broadside, even like waits for me. And I'm just shaking so bad that I'm like, I can't, I'm gonna miss. Like I knew right then, I thought about my spike and I was like, I literally just put my gun down, kept shaking, just watched them just, walk peacefully into the woods. And then I lost it and I cried again. But I think that initial spike, like early on in the season, definitely made me, I hope, a better hunter, because like I do want to be as much as
ethical.
I want to be so ethical. Like that is my number one thing going into it. Like I'm doing this for sustainability, but I just want to be so ethical. And so I definitely, I kicked myself hard. Like I think the whole week after I was like in a slump because I just felt like they had taken me out this whole season, like let me hunt their land. And I just like messed it up for the whole group. I felt terrible. I felt like I disappointed myself. I disappointed them. Like I wasn't good enough to even try to take the shot. Like what's worse, not taking the shot or taking the shot and messing up?
Anybody that tells you that they've been hunting a long time and haven't lost a deer, they're lying to you. I mean, you have to, I know just like bow hunting, like I used to be when I first got involved in it, I'd be like, just take the shot, rush the shot, it's fine. He's a little bit quartered the wrong way, whatever. But as you shoot deer and you don't find them, what happens, like you learn, like, I can't do that. Like I have to wait for the right moment. So it's good that you learn from that experience. I think that's important. It's sad that, you couldn't find it, but at the same time, it's taught you what to do to make the right choice, like later on.
Yeah, definitely.
So let's kind of talk a little bit. We're getting into like an hour here. Do you still have some time or?
Yeah, I do.
Okay. Let's talk about antler size and deer age. Does that stuff matter to you?
Not at all. If it's brown, it's down. I don't think, like, as a new hunter, like, again, like I said, I'm trying to get that experience. I'm trying to get that time and that muscle memory. So for me, like, I'm not about to discriminate. Especially like I'm not trophy hunting. Like I long term, I want to be able to fill my freezer and like not buy meat. Like that's why I started hunting. That's what I want to do. I think even when I date now, I'm like thinking in the back of my mind, like, are you going to help me fill my freezer? Like, is this a goal we can have in mind? Like,
yeah.
So I don't care. As far as age though, I wouldn't shoot a button buck, or I mean on purpose at least, right? Like it happens if visibility is bad, but I definitely want to go for mature, but especially on public, it's like I think it's a little different if you hunt public versus private. Like I've noticed a lot of private landowners, like they want their younger deer to mature and to get big beautiful racks. So I definitely understand it from that standpoint, but for me, no, I don't care.
Do you think that'll change? Let's just say let's say just a scenario. Let's say you shoot a 4-pointer this year and you get them, you hang them on your wall, whatever. And next year rolls around and you're sitting on public and you see a 4-pointer and it's like, I don't know when your gun season is, but let's just say it's opening day of gun season and you still got like a couple weeks to hunt. Are you shooting that 4? You think you're going to like hold out for a bigger one, or you just don't know yet?
I think it just depends. Like I know in Maryland, as a non-resident, you only have one buck tag.
Mm-hmm,
in Virginia,
that's how it is here.
Yeah, Virginia, you have 3.
Oh,
so
wow.
I hope I'm not wrong on that, but that'd be pretty bad. But I'm pretty sure it's 3. You get like an initial 6 just with your license, and then you can buy additional tags as well.
Okay.
And so I think it just depends. But honestly, knowing that I have those other, couple, I'd probably still take that 4.
Sometimes I say, like, I mean, you can see mine up on the wall. They're not anything big, but sometimes I'm like, I'll see one, that size or something, and it'll be opening day of gun season or something, and I'll be like, or bow season. I'm holding out, but like I've got skunked the last 2 years in Kentucky on bucks, and I had the chance to shoot some that are fours and sixes, and I'm always kicking myself at the end of the season because honestly, I want to shoot a nice racked buck, but the meat is pretty important to me because
Yeah.
I mean we don't buy any of that, like we don't buy beef or anything from the store. So if I don't shoot enough deer, I'm gonna be like in a meat crisis. So
Yeah,
yeah,
exactly.
sometimes I'll make the decision like last second. I'm like I'm shooting it. I don't care if it's a 2-year-old or a year and a
Yeah.
half.
Or I think it's like the scenario where you're like watching it, and then it's like sometimes I feel like a deer will like, it's not that they're asking for it, but like they just put themselves in like perfect. Then you're just like, all right, okay,
It's meant to be.
it's meant to be. Like you're here, and you got to eat. So
So you got we'll jump into a little bit of gear. You got involved in probably buying your own gear. I know you got a Summit now, and
mhm.
what are you rocking as far as clothing? Like where are you getting your clothes from? What would you recommend like somebody maybe first or second year going into it? Yeah, as far as tree stands, bows, guns, anything like that. I mean, do you dive fully in? Do you go all
Mm.
out or what?
So I feel like I get this question a lot from new hunters. Because I even feel like sometimes, I'm like, oh my gosh, I'm spending all this money, and I feel like, experienced hunters will be like, no, it's really not that much. But when you think about it, like, you go from having nothing, like, absolutely, like the only camo thing I had was like a ball cap and a pair of Crocs, and I'm like, this did nothing for me, right? So it's like you have to start from scratch. And I'm thankful. I love my job. I feel like I do well for myself, and I'm 25, but it's also like I wasn't expecting to fall in love with it, so I didn't have this like this
Yeah.
this piggy bank just for hunting. Like I get now every year I will, but
It
it's
seems like
not.
every year you buy stuff and you're like, man, I'm good for the next year. And then the next year rolls around and you're like, I'm spending the same amount of money I did last year. But yeah.
Yeah. And I definitely think it's hard not to get sucked into, because obviously when I started hunting, the first thing I did, I'm a millennial, like I went to social media and I was like, oh, like what are other people using? What are other people doing? But I think you have to keep in mind it's like half those people that you're looking at on Instagram that are hunting, it's all ads, right? Like they're getting
Hmm.
paid for that. They're promoting it. They're getting free stuff and promoting it. So it's like I do get where people are like, you really don't need a lot to hunt, and for a new hunter, it is going to feel like a lot. First thing I did, Facebook Market. I bought so many clothes on Facebook Market. So it's like I wasn't really paying attention to brands. I was like, oh, I just need to be able to actually go into the woods and hunt. Now that I've done that and I've bought some stuff brand new, and I've still looked for stuff used too, because it's like if it's in good condition, like I'm gonna buy it.
Yeah.
I think it's not. I don't really necessarily have a favorite brand yet. Also, I have to bring up, as a female hunter, the hunting community is like, yeah, it's inclusive. Women should hunt too. And then it's like the sizing, awful. The availability, awful. It's so, at least here, right where I live, like it's very hard to find female like hunting clothes that fit. And I feel like the first thing people always say is, well, buy men's or buy youth. Okay, a youth XL does fit me, but it doesn't fit me right, and it's not
Yeah.
comfortable, especially if you're hunting with a bow, right? Like I think comfort's like first thing regardless. So it's like youth doesn't fit right. And then I swear so many things where it's like youth, like, or one size fits all. It still is like I'm swimming in it. Like it's way too big. And then with men's sizes, I feel like I go to buy stuff and it's like there's no smalls, or even like there's maybe some mediums, and then it's like 3XL. And I'm like, who
Hmm.
is this helping? Like, this isn't helping me. So I will say, like, if you're a new hunter, it is hard. Try to buy used as much as possible, and ignore everyone. I'm just going to say it. Ignore everyone who's in Sitka, like head to toe. Like, if you have the money for that, sure, go for it. But especially if you're new to hunting, like, you don't need that. You don't need it at all. I think we've all seen people harvest animals in like jeans and a flannel. So it literally is like just try to pay attention to what you do need. I think firearms was the biggest thing for me, right? Like I didn't own a bow, I didn't own any guns. So although clothing is important, like I used my hiking boots all of whitetail season. And I was lucky enough where it's like I was hiking and camping before. So I had basically everything I needed for like base layers. So I know I saved myself some money in that aspect. I finally got hunting boots, so I won't have to use my hiking shoes, but definitely buy used. And then my bows. So I bought a compound and a crossbow at the same time, and
Okay.
I bought them used, which I know some people say don't do, but I did it. So, and it's working out great.
So there's a little trick, I'll just say real quick, for when you're buying like a compound, or I guess a crossbow too, anything that's fiberglass. So some people drop them out of stands, or they drop them off their truck. If you take a cotton ball and you rub it both ways down the bow, one way and then back, if it's cracked or anything, like it got a hairline crack in it,
it'll snag or
it'll snag, and you'll be able to tell that you might not normally be able to. I sold a bow years ago, and the guy did that when I sold it to him, and I was like, what is he doing? But yeah, I mean, it's pretty smart, because you never know who you're buying stuff
yeah.
from. But
And
yeah,
also, I didn't know what like dry firing was. And that's like really
yeah,
bad. It's like if you're new, it's like when you're shooting without the air or bolt. So, but I did feel a little bit better. Actually, the friend I have in Maryland that I hunt with,
hmm,
that's how I met him. He was selling like all of his girlfriend's clothing, like hunting clothes.
oh
And
wow,
so I went to go meet up with him after work. I found it on Facebook Marketplace for like, it was $100 for like well over worth that. So I was like, I'm buying this whole bundle of clothes, and that helped me out so much. But when I met up with him, and he's like, why, are you just hunting, or like what's going on? I was like, I just started, like I don't have anything, like I mentioned that I wanted to get into archery, and he was like, wait a second, like I literally, I bought all of this stuff for my girlfriend, and she like didn't really like it, so that's why I'm selling it all. He was like, she has a compound and a crossbow if you want to take a look at them. So I did feel more comfortable knowing like, I bought them from, now we're friends, we hunt together. So he's actually going to be the one taking me out hunting goose and ducks and sea ducks for the first time. So
that's
I would
cool.
say, yeah, definitely Facebook Marketplace or Poshmark, like anywhere you can find used clothes. And then as far as guns, I have no idea if you buy guns used or not, but
Do you think like clothing matters, like, because it's going to be different for everybody? Like you're probably wearing different clothing than I am here, as far as like, if it only gets 40 degrees, it's cold there, like 40 degrees here. Sometimes we're wearing just like a long sleeve. So I think that's something people have to consider too. Maybe just buy used or buy cheap the first year, and then figure out, oh yeah, my toes are cold. Maybe I need
mhm.
to upgrade my boots, or,
Yeah.
maybe I need to buy more base layers, instead of just diving in and seeing something on an ad and mainstream media that's,
Yes.
yeah, thousands of dollars, and
And
maybe you
I
don't need that.
And I would even say now I can go, look at all my hunting clothes. And there's still some stuff that I got initially because I was like, oh, maybe I'll need this. And it's like, I don't use that. And I don't wear it, or I don't need it. Um, so I definitely, yeah, I agree with that. I think I was up in, my ex was from Indiana. So I was there like last Christmas. And I remember it was like, I saw some deer. They were massive. Like, like I was like, my jaw was on the ground. I was like, for just like, I've never seen that in Virginia, like ever. But it was also snowing, and it was like, I swear it was like 15 degrees, and like their hunting season was going on, and I was like, I'm shivering in a tree stand if it's like 35. Like I'm uncomfortably cold. Like how do people in the Midwest? I don't like Midwest, New England, like New York. I really don't know what brands y'all are using, but it must be good. So
Can I ask what part of Indiana? Because I'm in Indiana myself, but I'm at,
it
you don't
was
have to say the town specifically. Is it north or south of Indy?
no, it was near Ohio. It was like Crown Point, I think.
Okay, yeah.
Somewhere
Yeah,
near
so I'm
there.
I'm a few hours south of there. I'm closer
Okay.
to like the tip of the, I call it like the boot of, in like,
Okay.
Indiana kind of looks like a boot or whatever. I'm close to the tip of that, but I'm right on the Kentucky border, so I'm lucky like you, I get to hunt 2 states and buy
Yeah.
double the tags.
Yep.
But yeah. So you just bought a new muzzleloader, right?
I did.
How'd that go? Did you just walk in the store and you're like, give me a muzzleloader? Did you take somebody with you, or?
So I actually, again, I got super lucky. And I have been told that muzzle loaders are one gun you do not buy used just because like it corrodes so easily.
And
Um,
people overload them.
yes, right,
And that can
yeah.
be scary.
So I knew for that, I knew I wanted to buy brand new for that. But I did get super lucky because my friend Mike, the one I hunt with on private, he owns his own outdoor shop.
Oh,
So
cool.
literally, like he did everything for me. He was like, "This is what I think you'll need. This is what I think you'll like. Like this is, we're gonna order it. It'll come in this date." Like I really didn't do a whole lot. So I bought a CVA. It's an Optima V2. It's beautiful. Like I know this is my first gun, so I'm definitely like biased, but
Yeah.
it's absolutely beautiful, and like I love it. Sometimes I just take it out. I'm like, I can't wait to use you like in the season.
Yeah,
So
I seen some of your, I think it was story posts or maybe an Instagram post of you shooting it. Did you have very much do you have very many problems sighting it in?
actually, no, I was
Yeah.
surprised. I will say the only problem was because I'd only shot a muzzleloader like at deer. I had never really paid attention to like how much it kicks. How so sighting it in, like I think after like I think maybe like 6 shots, I was like, I think I'm good. Like I'm good for a break. Like it's there. Like I'm hurting. Like this hurts a little. So
Did your friend teach you how to measure powder and all that, I guess?
so
Or is it taking it probably takes the cylinders, doesn't it? The pre
yeah, I was about to say
okay.
I know nothing about measuring powder. It's literally like the they're just in a cylinder and then you drop in the
It's
it's
like
I mean,
two usually.
yeah, it's
Mhm.
2. Yep.
And then are you carrying reloads with you like in the they
Yeah.
kind of
So
look
I
like a not a film canister, but a
it
bullet
almost
goes on one side
so
and
it's funny because it reminds me of like the little like the little when you're at a club and it's like you can see my previous life right now. It's like when you're at the club and it's like a little shooter, but it's like a cylinder.
Oh yeah.
No,
Uh-huh.
I bought I bought the like the rifle sling that has like them on it
Oh yeah.
already. So yeah, and so you just I'm hoping I only need one, but if not, it happens. So
They're always handy. I mean, you can always shoot a deer and then be walking out and going to the truck to get a game card or something and see another one. So it's good to have reloads.
yeah.
How would you say people see you now? Like your family, friends, I don't know, people from high
Yeah.
school? Not that that matters, but how do people see you now that you're this big deer killer?
So it's definitely, I think at first I was so nervous because this was before I had realized like the true like meaning of inspiration, right? So I just knew like I was obsessed, like I wanted to do it all the time, spend all my time, spend all my money. And I didn't really know how to quite like eloquently describe that to people. And so I was nervous because like you can't just go from this like vegan who swerves for butterflies to like hey, I'm hunting. I can't hang out right now. You know what I mean? Like that's
Yeah,
definitely
they
a
think you
weird.
fell off somewhere and
Yeah,
kind of having a
exactly. Like,
crisis or
are you
something.
okay? Like, do we
Yeah.
need to come get you? Kind of thing. Like, you moved to a small town. Now you're acting a little funny. So that's literally what happened. And but I definitely my family's super super accepting. And by Christmas, they were buying me a bunch of hunting stuff. So that felt really good. And I think their first question was like, "Oh, so like when are you bringing us like meat or like jerky? Like when are you going to feed us?" I'm like, "Oh my gosh, like this is I'm like, let me focus on myself first. Like, let me fill my freezer and then maybe I'll get to you."
Everybody
So,
always wants the jerky.
yep. And so my family is super accepting. I think they still think it's kind of funny, which it is. I think you kind of just have to laugh at it. I think my friends definitely really confused and I try not to talk about it too much, but I feel like if anything, they definitely see me as like a more confident individual. I was not expecting that as a female to go into such a male dominated thing and then to come out like more confident and feeling more like I want to say like self fulfilled and more aware of what I actually am capable of. So I feel like if anything, they probably just see me as a more confident version of myself. I hope so. That's probably the better part of it, right? But
Do you were you in the crowd with other vegans, or were you like on that lonesome journey where all your friends vegans?
No, not really. I had a couple here and there, but no one that was like a close, like best friend or anything like that.
Yeah, I was wondering if you had like a best friend or a good group of friends that were vegans, and maybe now
Yeah,
they had fell off, or like,
yeah. Thank God I didn't have to be like sit anyone down and be like, "Hey, like I kill animals now." So, that definitely didn't have to happen. So,
so I really like to squirrel hunt. I know when I talked to you a few months ago, you had mentioned that you'd been a little bit.
hmm
Can we talk about that some? Like
hmm
your first time squirrel hunting and what you're shooting? You're shooting a shotgun or a 22 or a slingshot for all I know. I don't know.
so I went. I've only been twice.
Okay.
And I remember at first, because my friend Marsden, like I don't, he didn't expect me to like hunting either. So I think when I took such an interest to it, I was like bugging him all the time. He was like, "Well, what else do you want to hunt? Like, do you want to try squirrel? Do you want to try turkey? Like, what else are you interested in?" And I remember specifically saying like, "No squirrels." Like to me at the time, right? Like I'm like they're little baby animals because they're so tiny. Like I didn't want to, yeah, I didn't want to shoot them at all. And then I think it was halfway through the whitetail season where it's like every single twig is snapping, every single leaf, and you're like, oh, it's gonna be a buck, and then it's a squirrel. So I was like, these squirrels are about to get murked, like they're on my hit list, like it's game over. So I went into it super excited too because it's like a lot more like low key, like you can talk, you can. It's
Yeah.
definitely it seemed a lot more like chill and kind of like laid back. So I was definitely excited to do it. The first time I went, I think it was like a 17 HMR. Is that what it's
Mm-hmm.
called? That's what I used the first time. And then the second time, I think it was like a 22. Does that sound
Mm-hmm.
right? Okay,
Yep.
yeah. So, and it was like the funnest thing ever. I actually sat in like a stand and he was over like, we kind of made a bet, like see who could shoot more. So, um, oh my gosh, it was like so much fun. Like if you haven't tried it, I highly recommend. I didn't think I was going to, but like everything with, what's going on right now with the outdoors, like I didn't think I was going to like any of it. So I think I need to stop telling myself that I'm not going to be interested in something and just like try it. But I loved it, like sniping them out of like trees. It's a lot of fun. Also, as far as sustainability, like I think it kind of hit me that it's like squirrels are everywhere all the time. Like there is not a more, to me, right? There's not a more sustainable meat than squirrel. And I would love to get more into like cooking it and like consuming it more often.
Did you guys end up eating them, or did he take them home, or?
Actually, no. So they have like an older woman who lives like on the property behind them that is always asking for squirrels. So usually when they shoot them, they bring them to her. So I didn't get to like skin. I remember I was like on YouTube like all the day before, like learning how to like skin them because I was like, oh my gosh, like I'm ready to do it. So I didn't get to, but it's definitely I'm gonna try again this season and see how it goes.
It's funny that usually, well, at least around here, when you start hunting as a kid or whatever, you go with your dad or your grandpa. You start out squirrel hunting or rabbit hunting, and then you move to deer, and then maybe waterfowl or something. But you're kind of
Fox.
like jumping around as an
I
adult. It's interesting to see that because it's like it's a thing. Like the first thing you do when you're a kid is you're going squirrel hunting. You're not going out and bow hunting or
yeah.
yeah. So you said that you sometimes like you're like, oh, I'm not gonna like that. You may do this waterfowl thing, and then you may, how waterfowl hunters and deer hunters are. You may fall into that trap, and you may give up deer hunting altogether.
I don't think so, but I am excited. I
Yeah,
don't think I could ever give up deer, honestly. Again, it's like it's hard to describe to people. And I think that's another thing, like with your earlier question, like explaining it to my family and explaining it to my friends, like until you go and do it, like you're never gonna know. And so I just try to tell people all the time, especially on like my hunting page, I'm like, just get out of your comfort zone because like I would have never thought that I could even do any of this. So but I am excited to hunt waterfowl. I tried shooting clays for the first time like a
oh
couple
yeah.
weeks ago. That was like it was like the most embarrassing thing I've ever done and experienced. I knew I was going to be bad, but I wasn't really prepared for how bad I was going to be. So who knows? I might not even shoot a single bird this whole season, but I'm going to
Just
try.
takes practice.
Yeah,
So
exactly.
so you've hunted what all have you hunted then? You've hunted turkeys, you've hunted deer, squirrels. What's your I don't know if I'm missing anything. What's your favorite? Is it deer?
Yeah, definitely deer. Because
Yeah.
I would say like because I can't say turkey, not yet. Like I was just mad. I was frustrated. So I think if I harvested a turkey, it would have been definitely. I mean, maybe that would be number one, but I think right now, like whitetail is staying in a safe spot at number one for sure.
What would be like your number one advice or something? What would you recommend to somebody wanting to get involved in hunting like you don't know anybody? Like let's just pretend that you wake up one day and you're like, I want to go hunting, but they don't run into somewhere at the hardware store or whatever.
Yeah.
Where do they start? Do they start on social and
No.
start messaging people? Do they, I
No,
mean,
honestly, I'm gonna say a hard no. I would say stay off of social. So I started hunting in October, and I don't think I made that Instagram until the end of November. And it was because I think that's why I struggle too. And you can probably relate with like trying to move to self filming. It's like when I am hunting, like I don't want to be on my phone. Like
yeah,
I'm going out there to do this, and it's also such like a stress relieving process. And I feel like your phone comes with responsibilities, and like social media is toxic as heck. So like I try to tell people like stay off social media at first. Honestly, go to your state's like DNR, DWR, like every state calls it something different, but go to your state's hunting page, because what I did not know at the time is that there are a lot of states that will set you up with an experienced hunter or like even a guide, but through their department. And they will take new hunters out. You use like their weapon, like they literally give you everything. And they're teachers, like they're literally teaching you how to do it, as opposed to like you trying to go on social media and it's like, where do I start? And we talked about it earlier. There's just such an overload of information that it is overwhelming. I don't think anyone should really start by going to you. I mean, you can start going to YouTube, but definitely, I mean, look at your state's page first and see what information. There's even like, you can call and you can ask them questions. So I would definitely, that's the number one thing I would do is go find your state's thing, and they will set you up with someone who will help you, because I think something as special as hunting, and I complained about the women's sizes earlier, but I do think like people want you to hunt. And I think that's why everyone I've ran into has been so encouraging. Like if I see someone wearing camo at this point, I straight up go up to them and I'm like, what do you hunt? I'm like, where are you from? What do you do? Like, can we talk about it? Because I've never had anyone in my life that like did that. So it's like now it's like I see someone across the, street. I'm like, oh, like he's wearing camo. I wonder what he hunts. So I would say like talk to real people too, because when I tell people I just started, they're like, what do you mean? They're like, does your husband hunt? Like, does your boyfriend hunt? And I'm like, no, like it's just me. Like I'm just trying to figure it out. And they're like, what? Like why? But
yeah.
it's never like I really haven't received any like a negative backlash, like nothing negative. Everyone has been so supportive. And I do say that with I understand that I am a young female and it might be different for like a male to do it,
Yeah, I
because
was going to ask you about that too. Do you
it
think you
is
get treated differently because
I
you're a
do.
female?
I
Yeah.
100% do. I'm a feminist, but I will say like I am profiting over just the knowledge people are willing to share with me, because I think I can't ignore the fact that men are like, oh, you want to hunt? Come with me. Like, you know what I mean? I'm trying to like not to get kidnapped out here, but like all the time I get messages and it's like, come elk hunt in Colorado, or like come to Alaska, hunt moose. I'm like,
Do you feel like I didn't have this as a question, but it did just kind of come up. Do you feel like you get weird vibes like when you're at Walmart looking at clothes or farm store, or you're like I don't know, at Bass Pro, or you're at a gas station early in the morning getting coffee? Like, do you get dudes that just like give you those weird vibes because you're like a girl that's dressed in camo and you're going hunting?
I
Do you
wouldn't say
face that a lot?
I wouldn't say it's like weird vibes. I would just say people are always looking for like my dad or my husband, and I'm like, there's no
Yeah.
husband here. Like it's just me. Be nice to me or like help me out. But I think it's not like weird vibes. I would just really say it's like people are expectant. I think when they see a woman, it's like, oh, your boyfriend's making you hunt. Like even that South Carolina, like when I ran into someone on public, and I was so happy to have my friend there, but he automatically looked at me and was like, "Oh, you must love this guy if you're up this early to hunt." And I just was
Yeah.
like, if only he knew. Like if only he knew. That's not. Nope. That's actually not it. Like so that's what happens a lot. But I wouldn't say like weird or like
Yeah.
obviously the Instagram part of it. People are creepy
That's a whole
sometimes.
nother, yeah, it's a whole
That's
nother
a
issue.
whole nother.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Um, I guess could you, for anybody that's not like watching on YouTube, we've got the scroll at the bottom. Or actually, do you have any questions for me before we end this?
Yeah, I did. I know you had a baby in what was it, June,
Yep,
July,
June.
June. Yeah, so I get to be a first time aunt in December, and I am absolutely ecstatic. Like I'm so excited. I feel like I've been waiting my whole life to be an aunt. And with hunting, have you hunted with young children before? Like, have you taken them out? Like, I know I've talked to some people and I'm like, how do you make them sit still or be quiet? Like, to me, that doesn't, I'm not good with kids to begin with, but I mean, do you have any advice?
I haven't hunted with young children. I've hunted with buddies with younger brothers, but that I wouldn't say that they weren't like 3 or 4, they would be like,
Yeah.
I would be like 16 or 17, they would be 12.
Okay.
But gosh, I don't know. Like I mean, he's only a few months old right now,
Yeah.
but I'm trying to kind of just take him along on scouting, in the truck and stuff. But I'm not sure when they get to be. I think it's probably going to be dependent on the person. I know some
Yeah.
kids maybe are more hyper and maybe some kids aren't.
Yeah.
Um, I don't know. Maybe if you're sitting in it depends how complex you get with it too. If you're sitting in a blind versus
Yeah.
if you're trying to take them in a stand, I don't know. Maybe I hate to say this so much, but I guess if you're sitting in a blind, maybe you could take an iPad for them to, like, if they get
Yeah,
bored
and I
or
and I
something
have
that
seen
they.
that. I've seen that on Instagram where people are taking, like, young kids and they have a little iPad on the blind, and I'm like, "Hell no, like, we're not doing that, like, that is not the
Mm-hmm.
point." I
And
have
then
heard I have heard
I'm
from
sorry.
some people. No, you're good. I've heard from some people, like, you have to make it a game. So it's like, who can be the most quiet? Or, like, can you see the deer? Like, do you see any, like, rabbits? Or, like, and you just have to make it, like, more intriguing, especially, nowadays where it's like technology is like taking over. So it's like
Mm-hmm.
you have a 10-year-old and he's never been out there. I don't see that going well, but I'm not a parent. I don't know. I just know that I am so excited to have a hunting buddy and as a form of like a family member who is like still right, like fresh, like clean slate. So it's like I can brainwash him to love hunting as much as I do. And it'll be our like, our fun thing. So I'm definitely excited for that. And I imagine you are too, like, having,
Oh, super excited. I think the big thing is to take them and then give them another option. Like maybe it doesn't have to be an iPad. I'm super like against that.
yeah.
But maybe like if they want to go and they want to watch the deer for, kids get distracted. So if they want to watch and then they don't see anything for 30 minutes, let them play on the iPad or, Game Boy is still a thing. I don't know, but
Yeah.
whatever. And then maybe once the deer comes out in the field, they can jump back in and kind of kill some of that waiting time. But mainly,
Yeah.
my thing is um, try to teach the process. Try to teach like not only just like we're gonna go out today and shoot this deer. Maybe scout in the spring. Kind of teach them like this is a rub, this is a
Yeah.
scrape, this is a bed. So they kind of like understand like the whole like system of it instead of we just like we go out here, we sit in this blind for 4 hours and we wait for something to to pop out. I don't know. That's kind of like my
Yeah.
approach.
I feel shed hunting too would be a lot of fun because it's kind of like,
Yeah.
you know, you can do like hide and go seek or like, you know, who can find the first one kind of thing. So,
Yeah. I think it's I think if you introduce them slowly, you're better off than just like today we're gonna sit in this blind for
for
12 hours or something.
yeah, don't move, don't say anything. Yeah.
I guess if you don't have any other questions for me, so people that are listening on Apple or Spotify or Google or not on YouTube, could you tell everybody where to find you on social? Because there may be some new hunters that have some questions for you and some stuff that we didn't cover.
Yep. So my Instagram and my TikTok, they're both rookie_hunting. And I definitely post a lot more on my Instagram. I will say if you are a new hunter, I feel like Instagram's a lot nicer place to start. I didn't make a TikTok till like last month and that place is brutal. So,
And you will get kicked off if you don't watch what you post as far as
yeah,
hunting content.
which I mean, I could talk for forever, but yeah, it's definitely TikTok's a little. I'm getting used to it, trying to figure it out, but I also feel like a 60-year-old on that thing trying to make videos. So I
Yeah,
don't know.
it can be a little intimidating at first, but
Yeah,
if you want to connect with other hunters and stuff, I mean, TikTok it's kind of transformed from being like dancing videos. Like for most people that don't know, as you as the algorithm builds for like what you like, you'll start to get whatever content you watch. So if you want to find, I mean, I've talked to guys that I found a guy on there or just scrolling that just happened to live 20 minutes from me. And he was pretty big into turkey hunting and stuff. So, I mean, you can meet people that way, but
yeah.
yeah, it's
And
worth checking
that
out.
is another thing. Like, do you have any other advice? Because I feel like the hardest thing, I have such like an influx of, you know, DMs from majority men, obviously, like that want to hunt or, you know,
Yeah.
give me advice. But it's like, I'm trying to find female hunters. Like, that is my hardest thing. It's like, I want female friends to like hunt with. And I'm hoping maybe TikTok can be that place for me where I find that. But man, I've had like no luck really.
Really. I was gonna suggest TikTok. There's a lot of, gosh, I don't want to sound bad. There's a lot of phoniness, maybe. I don't know if that's the
Yeah.
right word. So you
Well,
got
and
to
I feel
be,
like it is hard to be like it's kind of hard to come off genuine because
yeah.
it's up to everyone's interpretation. So I feel like that's why I'm favoring Instagram so much more because like I can actually I don't know, it's just easier to be honest.
Maybe if I was in your shoes, I know around here, um, hunting groups on Facebook are fairly
Okay.
big. So they have like around me, they have Southern Indiana bow hunters. They have like Indiana deer hunting. So search maybe your state and find a group, and then
Yeah.
you'll maybe condense that down to your
Like
state or
yeah,
the
smaller
other state you're
counties.
hunting, and then maybe connect with like, yeah, people that way. I would say it might be a better option than finding somebody that lives in, I don't know, Colorado, and then you're like, I've never met this person before. Like,
I'm gonna go
is
get
this
kidnapped.
actually
Who are
like a
we?
dude? You know,
Yeah.
like you just never know. But you may get on Facebook and connect in a group and then find out that you guys have a mutual friend or you went to high school together, and then you can kind of
Yeah.
like vouch, because the internet can be scary. I mean, you could be talking to a girl for 6 months thinking you're going to go on this hunt, and you show up and it's, yeah, I don't know, Jeffrey
Yeah.
Dahmer.
Yeah.
Yeah. But yeah, I don't know, maybe I don't know, your buddy has that shop, right?
Yeah.
How does he feel about letting you run off with another girl hunter and taking his hunting partner away? I mean, I don't
So
know, you could
I
go as far as like putting up an ad looking for other girls to hunt with. I mean,
actually that's kind of smart. I definitely didn't think about that because I know he'd let me put a flyer up if I'm like seeking other female hunters. Like I don't know. At this point, I just it because I only hunted with his wife Joanna, and I feel like it was just such a different experience. And I don't mean that in any like you know better or worse, but I will
yeah.
say like it was just such a different experience. It was like refreshing almost, and I just had such a good time. And I was like, man, like I need other female friends that hunt. Like, and I see, I see those videos on TikTok of like 12 girls all like shooting ducks. And I'm like, oh my gosh, I'm like, where do you guys find each other? Like that,
Yeah.
maybe it's just the state, but like it just seems like an absolute blast. And so it's hard.
You should put a flyer up, but you have to be careful putting your phone number on there because a
Right.
lot of guys hang out around archery shops and stuff too. So I don't know. That's a tough thing.
Yeah.
I'll think on that, and maybe I will shoot you a message about it because I don't know. It's hard to find. It's even hard for me to find people to hunt with. I mean, I hunt with my wife, and we kind of like just kind of keep it. I kind of like it that way a little bit, but
Yeah.
sometimes she's busy, and I'm like, I just want to film. Like, I just need somebody to go. Like, I'll film. I don't even want to hunt, but it's just like I
Yeah.
don't know. Everybody's so different. Everybody's style is so different. You talked about like, oh, is that legal? Like when your friends want to do stuff, like you run into that stuff
Yeah.
too. People have different ethics, and
Yes. And then I
I
feel like
don't
a
want to
narc.
find people like that don't
Yeah.
have the same ethics as me.
Yep.
So
I agree.
okay, well, I appreciate you taking the time to come on. It's getting kind of late, so I won't keep you any longer. We'll probably
Yeah.
talk about more stuff, but maybe we'll get you on maybe mid-season or after your season, and we'll catch
Yeah.
up on how your public land adventures go because I'd be
Yeah.
curious to see what kind of people you run into. And have you ever hunted gun season on opening day on public?
No.
Yeah, so that's a whole nother
I mean,
thing.
even in general, this will be my first time hunting whitetail on public. So
Yeah.
I feel like I it's I don't know. I have no idea what to expect, but I would definitely love to come back on, and especially after waterfowl too, and let you know from someone who's never done it before how it goes. So
Okay.
yeah.
I'll definitely get in touch with you and we will catch up soon.
All right. I
All
really
right.
appreciate it.
Yep. Thank you.
All right.